Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. My name is Cord Zoen. I'm your host. I'm the CEO of Bake More Pies, a full-service advertising and marketing agency here in Tampa Bay. Another well-known organization located in Tampa Bay are the Shriners headquarters of the entire earth, the international headquarters for Shriners and the Shriners Hospital. Today, we're joined by Mel Bower. He's the CMO and the Chief Communications Officer for the Shriners Hospital, which is an amazing organization that I first learned about in depth about 15 years ago when I toured their headquarter hospital located here in Tampa Bay on the USF campus. Mel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor and privilege to be with you today.
Well, we're super excited to talk to you. You're part of an incredible organization. I think there's one thing this world can agree on these days is that everyone still loves kids. And the work that you're doing for kids is outstanding. From my notes, I see that you have 21 different hospitals that you work with.
That's correct. 21 in North America, and those are actually bricks and mortar facilities. But then we also have outreach clinics, which at this point are about another 150 sites that do, it might be once a month, it might be once a year. And then we actively are doing outreach around the world and serving children from over 170 countries.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So when I first learned about the Shriners and the work that you guys do at the hospitals, the first work that I saw that you guys did had to do with conditions related to bone deformities, birth defects, things like that for kids. And it seems like there's a whole lot more that you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Shriners, all the services the Shriners provide?
Absolutely. So Shriners was founded back in 1922 as a response to the polio epidemic. The Shriners fraternity had been formed about 50 years prior to that. And at their 50th anniversary, they felt like they really needed to do something philanthropically to give back to the world. And so looking at the devastating impact that polio was taking on this country, they started their first orthopedic hospital and then opened a number more after that. But what the Shriners have shown throughout their nearly 100-year history of running the hospital system is the ability to pivot, to change, and to be transformed depending on what the needs are. The focus of the organization has always been on serving the needs of children, and particularly those without the ability to pay for the very best care. And so that's been a big part of the Shriners story, is its ability to adapt. About 50 years ago, we started our burns program and have become one of the leaders in pediatric burns, and have not only really pioneered treatments that have led to higher survival rates, but through our advocacy, we've actually worked to lower the number of pediatric burns that have happened. And so many people are aware that when they go and buy children's pajamas, that they have to be, flame retardant. That was legislation back in the 70s that the Shriners were an active part of lobbying for. So our history has really always been about meeting the needs of children in whatever way we could. Certainly orthopedics, which was our foundation, burns, which we pivoted to about 50 years ago. We also take care of a variety of spinal cord issues, whether that be scoliosis or actually spinal injury, as well as cleft lip and palate, which is something that can impact a number of people. It particularly begins at birth and can be something that children can, have to have treatment for over the course of many years until they reach adulthood. So within that, then there's obviously a lot of different aspects of care that Shriners include. So we have these main pillars of care, but our care certainly extends beyond that into all of the different needs that our children have. So it's not just really kind of our four main service lines, we'll sometimes refer to them. It's so many different things that we do as a part of our wraparound care and the entire continuum of care that the pediatric patients need within the specialty services that we provide. And that's certainly very different than just general pediatric work. So we're really proud of our history and our heritage. And more than anything else, we're excited about our next 100 years, because we believe that with our history of being able to show transformation and the ability to change and adapt to whatever is coming, that the next 100 years promises to be even more exciting than our first.
Well, Mel, that's really good news. I mean, it's just so exciting to hear about how the hospital has evolved over the years. And you've been at the director of communications and marketing for the last 3 years. And so I would imagine that you probably feel amazing going into work every day, knowing that the organization that you're a part of is doing such amazing things. Tell us about the transformation that the organization has gone through over the last decade or so.
Sure. So, as healthcare has really evolved, specialty healthcare in particular, the market has really changed. Healthcare trends have really changed, as well as the Shriners system. And so it used to be a system in which it was simply about getting your message out, and it was awareness based. And so Shriners took an approach to that was very much rooted mostly in public relations, simply giving good content out to the public. The transformation has really happened on two fronts, the inside and the outside. On the inside, we've really seen a tremendous transition to outpatient care from inpatient. We obviously initially constructed our facilities to be very inpatient focused. Care has changed, and pediatric care along with that. And so now many of the things that used to require 2-week, 4-week, 3-month hospital stays, many of which now can be done, in an outpatient setting or an ambulatory surgery setting. So there's been a lot of changes within the organization in terms of transforming our models of care and the way in which we meet patients based upon their varying needs. Outside of the organization, we've really sought to be much more engaged with the public, where public relations is really sort of unidirectional communication, just letting your message, go out. We really have worked to change our digital strategy, as well as all the different facets of our marketing to make sure that we are engaging with those that are following us, whether that might be on social or other forms of digital or even in earned media on broadcast. We want to make sure that what we're doing is we're storytelling, but we're doing so in a way that's relevant, in a way that's conversational, because we don't want to simply be talking. We want to be listening, and we want to be really interacting, whether that be with a patient, a referring provider, or even one of our many donors, all of which are really essential to the mission of Shriners.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine that social media is a natural fit for what you're doing. And really it really came into its prevalence about 10 years ago. And so I would assume that it was a natural decision to move into that arena, especially when it comes to engagement, to be able to have that two-way conversation, increase engagement, and potentially groom some future donors.
Absolutely, or patients, or even referring providers. So our approach is really multifaceted. We look at a lot of segmentation, and so our strategy is really diverse depending on who we're trying to reach. And so, we certainly have a presence on a variety of social channels, and they're all a little bit different in the way that they're geared and the way that we try to reach that audience that we're seeking on all the various fronts of what we do, and to do so, like I said, in a way that's engaging and not just unidirectional.
Well, you just made a good point. So it's not just about, because we're going to talk about fundraising, and obviously that's a big part of your job, but it's not just about raising money. It's about distributing services, because that's the mission of the Shriners Hospital, is to serve more people. In my notes, I have that in 2019, there were 145,608 patients served. That, according to my notes, is about 10% of the overall kids served since 1922. Is that accurate?
So it is. And the reason that it is accurate is because most of our children that we serve have care over the course of their entire childhood.
Gotcha.
So where you and I might have one interaction with a doctor, in a 10-year period, a lot of our patients will present at birth or shortly after, and then be treated until they're 18, and within a couple of exceptional situations, even age 21. So our children come into our system and they stay with us a long time, which is why you see both high numbers of patients that are treated on an annual basis, as well as then the nearly 1.5 million number that we've treated in our entire history.
Got it. So that's not just number of patients in 2019, that's patient interactions as well. Either way, it's a huge number. And it seems like you're growing quite a bit.
We are. And our goal is to see more kids in more places. And we know that as healthcare has changed, consumer patterns of healthcare have changed. And a lot of the things that we're doing are available, in other places. We believe, through being a pediatric specialty care organization, that we can provide a superior level than, adult healthcare that's trying to adapt to pediatrics. And so the model used to be that people would seek out care regardless of where it was. And we have in our history, have had patients that traveled 6 or 8 hours, to get to us for their care. Wow. Now what we're doing is looking at various access points, whether that be through outreach clinics, affiliates, that we work with who are also in different aspects or facets of healthcare, so that we can create situations in which if they need to go to one of our facilities for maybe a more major procedure, a prosthetic fitting or something like that, they certainly can. But follow-ups and other types of care that can be done virtually through telehealth can either be done that way or through one of our satellite or outreach clinics. And so we've really changed the way in which we interact with our patients to make it much more friendly to the families, because it can really be a burden on a family when they're facing a major medical challenge in the life of their child.
Oh
And,
my
and
God.
certainly the outpatient model is very helpful to that. Patients that used to have to be hospitalized for weeks or months, that was a burden not only on the child, but the entire family. Now, by being more outpatient focused, by being able to have more points of access to our system, we really are able to improve that entire care experience, not just for the child, but the entire family. And we believe that our philosophy of wraparound care extends to the entire family. Children don't exist away from their families. And so looking at that, considering all of those aspects, is a really important part of their care as well as their journey, to healing and wholeness.
Wow, that's really well said. Is the Shriners Hospital, are they incorporating any of the new technology that I keep seeing on YouTube, where there are 3D printed prosthetics and things of that nature? We
are looking at all of those things. We have been using 3D printing for some aspects of our care for quite a while. We certainly are always looking to do what we can on the technological front to do what's best for the child. And that's really one of the things that distinguishes us from a lot of others who are doing similar things, because of the way that we're structured and the way that our mission, has been so well funded by the Shriners and supported by the Shriners from our very inception. We're able to do what's best for a patient, regardless of what insurance may pay for, or regardless, of what a family might be able to afford. And so that really does make us special and unique, because we're not driven in the way that some healthcare has to be to survive, simply by the bottom line. We're really driven by what is best for children. And so as a result, that research, those technologies really allow us to go into a variety of places because of our donors who allow us to do that and to explore new opportunities that other healthcare systems might not be able to, because of how we are uniquely created. Well,
I got to tell you, it is heartwarming to hear that from you guys. To hear that your bottom line is really about kids served. And to be perfectly honest with you, I spent a lot of time researching and looking at the website to kind of freshen up my awareness of what you guys are doing. And just spending time on your website made me very emotional, thinking about my kids and if anything could possibly happen to them. And I'm just in awe of the work that's going on over there. Now, in terms of what you specifically do, obviously your headquarters are here in the Tampa Bay area. It's a great place to have a headquarters. Most awesome place to live and work in the world, in my opinion. But, so tell us a little bit more about your role. How do you manage communications and marketing across your entire network? Do you have a team? Is it coming straight from the top? Like, how do you guys organize that and get that done?
Sure. So that's been a big part of our transformation story. I started in January of 2018. And as I had referenced, when I started in the organization at that time, it was really not only a public relations approach, it was a public relations structure. And so even though I was hired as the chief marketing and communications officer, I came into a department that was known as the public relations department.
Sure.
And so the retooling had to begin immediately. And so we began by changing the name. We began by changing the structure of our staffing. We did quite a bit of internal reorganization. We hired some new folks to help us in leadership roles, as well as sort of rounding out the team. And so that's been an important part of the journey, was reestablishing, what our purpose was. And we really very much believe it is, primarily it's that patient message. We want to connect as many patients as possible with the mission, with the services that we offer and provide. Certainly a part of how we do that is to support the work that goes on to extend to our donors. That's a really important part of what we do. The mission is only furthered by the support that we're able to receive from the public. And so the initial structure that I walked into wasn't really conducive to that. It was, the public relations mindset, which obviously public relations is an important aspect of marketing communications. But we just had so much underrepresentation in other areas. We began at that time a digital transformation, which is in the final stages of being completed. So your references to our website, give us just a little bit more time. You're going to see an amazing new website, which is going to, I think, really take us beyond to a place we've never been, not only in terms of the way in which it's going to optimize who we are, connecting our services to patients and referring providers, but also extending that care experience to patients and families. So give us just a little bit more time, and I think you're going to love what you see from that relaunch. Organizationally, it certainly has been a challenge to reformulate the model of thinking towards marketing communications. The organization has embraced it, and in fact, in many cases, it has been extremely well received by those that have really wanted to see Shriners go through that type of a transformation. Also, when I joined the organization, we had a completely decentralized model. So I had a home office team that reported to me, but then there were marketing communications professionals that worked throughout our facilities, but they did not have a reporting relationship to home office. That kept us very siloed in our messaging, in our media. There was a lot of duplicative work that went on. And so as a result of the entire transformation that we've been undergoing, we now have a centralized model, and we started that kind of just at the beginning of the pandemic last year. And so now we're just over a year into that. That structure has been absolutely transformational. It has allowed us to not only have consistency of message and of media and all the things that we're putting out to the public, it has allowed us to utilize all the various resources in all of our facilities on one combined team to do a lift of work that we were never able to do before, because we just weren't aligned. We were on the same team and we wanted the same things, but we just didn't have the pathways to really facilitate collaboration. Now that the new website that I've mentioned is going to be going live very soon, that is the combined work of all of the MarCom professionals at our facilities as well as our home office. And so that centralized, and I call it a hybrid centralized model. It's centralized in that the reporting structure is that everyone now, through their various reporting relationships, answers up to me. The hybrid part of that is we didn't put everyone in Tampa. We really believed there was a benefit in keeping most of those professionals in their facilities where they were closer to care. We believed that was an important connection point. So we call it a hybrid centralized model because it's centralized in terms of resource and reporting, but hybrid in that we didn't want everyone in Tampa. If we have care going on at 21 facilities and then various touch points throughout the world, we wanted to make sure we had team members that were leveraged in such a way to celebrate what was going on in each of those places. So the change of that model, as well as a lot of the other work we've been doing toward becoming much more MarCom focused as opposed to a former PR model, all of those have worked together in pretty incredible ways for us to tell our story and for us to reach more people with the message of what we can do for them, the services that we can provide, as well as providing a way for our donors to connect with us in a more unique way. Because as we are able to share more valuable content to them, then they feel more connected to what they're supporting through their donations. And so, it's all about content. A lot of organizations struggle with enough content. Shriners has the exact opposite problem. We don't know at times how to use all of our content.
Right.
And so we have so many incredible, life-changing stories that it really becomes a challenge to make sure that we're making sure that the best stories are being told, but there's amazing stories being told every day, and that's our slogan, the most amazing care anywhere, and we believe that, and our stories illustrate that. And so lack of content is not our problem. One of our challenges is just making sure that we have enough ways to celebrate all of that content and that it gets out in front of as many people as possible.
Well, thank God for social media, because
absolutely
exactly, it gives you plenty of ways. I'll tell you what, there was one young person, Alec, who I just saw a segment on him on Fox News, the local station here, about a month ago. And I believe that we were celebrating his 10th year being an ambassador for the organization. He's now, I believe, 18 years old. He's more of a mentor within the group, but he made a big difference to the Shriners Hospital. He seemed incredibly charismatic. He had one heck of a story, and he was a very inspirational young man. Could you tell us a little bit about Alec's story?
Yeah, absolutely. Alec is, one of our nearly 1.5 million patients who have received, the most amazing care anywhere at a Shriners facility. What is special about Alec is he has something that's just innate and natural within him, in which he wants to connect with people. He is such a genuine young man. He comes from a wonderful family who have been most supportive of him, during the health challenges that he's been facing since birth. And he was a way for people to connect with Shriners in a way they never did before. They may have driven by our facilities. They may have heard about us. They may have known someone or heard about someone who have been treated. But Alec became this amazing face and smile and voice of Shriners. And it was so organic how that happened. We have amazing patients at all of our facilities. And so it wasn't like we went on this big search to find Alec per se. Alec emerged, as someone that people just immediately connected with. They wanted to see more of him. They wanted to hear more of him. And as someone who has gotten to know him very well, I can tell you what you see on television is even more genuine and real and honest behind the set. He's just a tremendous person. He's going to do whatever he wants to do. He is incredibly talented. And above all, he's just a great human being. And he's one of these people that just makes the world a better place. It has been our privilege to provide his care, and he has been a tremendous we call him a spokespatient for us, as he has told his story, and as he has connected with so many people. It has really just allowed us to extend that mission even further. And so we're so appreciative of the relationship that we have with him and his family. And the spot that you referenced that was recently on Fox was just a really interesting way to look at his whole journey. And the fact that, now as he enters adulthood, he's looking beyond his care, and he's looking beyond his days in a Shriners facility. He's looking now onto what does he want to do with his life. And He's in that place that a lot of 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds are, in which they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Alec has a very good sense of that through some of the experiences that he's even been able to get through Shriners. He's very sports focused. We do a lot of sports engagements. And so he has been right there with us, whether it's at the PGA Tour tournament that we host every year in Las Vegas, where he's right on the green, with the pros, or it's the East-West game, the East-West Shrine Bowl that we do every year, in which, we're looking at, the next stars of the NFL. He's right there on the sidelines, interviewing not only the coaches, but the players as well. And so it's just been a tremendous experience for us. And this relationship is one that just means a lot to Shriners. But it's also not terribly unique in that it does reflect the experience that so many patients and families have with Shriners and have had for nearly 100 years.
Yeah, well, one of the things I really enjoyed about the interview, where I saw him talking about the impact that he's made, is he seems to really understand the impact that he's had to the organization, to the hospitals, and how that helps the other kids that are now coming through the system in the cohorts of children who are receiving care. And I think he seems like he really understands it, and he's embraced just, God's given him those gifts to be able to help share y'all's services and create awareness around it. And I think that's amazing. So, I'd like to pivot over to fundraising. I mean, as a nonprofit, especially one with a budget like you guys have, I have in my notes $38 million in research. That is a huge budget for a nonprofit, and of course, an incredibly important one. Obviously, we all learned about virtual conventions last year and virtual ways to raise money. I would imagine with the types of work that you guys do, that being able to make an impression with thousands and millions of people at once through things like the East-West Shrine Bowl game and all of that are a big part of your strategy to be able to create awareness. For me, it's one of the most memorable things you guys do on an annual basis. With other nonprofits, there's also B2B sponsorship. There's things like the Benevon model. What works best for you guys, and how do you see that moving on into the future?
Sure. So, Shriners has always taken the approach that it's a family experience. Like I said earlier, when you come into our facility, we're not just taking care of the child, the patient, we're taking care of the whole family. So we've always tried to extend that same mindset out into the community, into the various communities that we serve, by trying to connect with lots of different people in lots of different ways. So, that segmentation that I refer to, that's when that becomes really important, because we understand that different people respond differently. They want content differently. And so, as a result, I mentioned everything that we're doing in the digital space. Certainly, that's a huge area of emphasis for us. We continue through our digital transformation, but we also do some very traditional things. Shriners still produces a magazine on a quarterly basis called Leaders in Care. And that is sent out to, people throughout the country, that connects to our stories, our patients, our providers. You mentioned research, which is a huge pillar at Shriners. Research and teaching have been foundational in our experience. And so where a lot of people want to gather or want to consume their content on their mobile devices, or through some sort of digital technology, we acknowledge that there's a lot of people that still want to hold a magazine in their hands, and they want to sit down at the end of the day when they get their mail and read about us. So I think that really speaks to the idea that we don't just choose one type of person that we think would be a great donor. We really try to extend our message of who we are and what we do out to everyone. And we try to do that in different ways. Obviously, the tactics change, but the mission and the message is essentially the same. We're just always looking for more ways to connect to different kinds of people. And that's why you see that we do a diversity of things, whether, it's in digital advertising or television, or the sports engagements that we do. Those sponsorships are all, just a part of a very large puzzle. And so understanding that, the life cycle of a donor can be really unique. And we certainly look at the generational trends of that, that there are a lot of characteristics of even younger generations that want to connect to a mission. They want to connect to something, even if they're not in a position in their life where they might be able to donate financially. They're still looking for that content because they're looking to be a part of a story that is greater than themselves. We recognize that part of building that relationship with people is knowing and understanding that you don't wait until someone has the ability to donate to start communicating with them. We want lots of people to know our story and who we are and the mission that we provide each and every day, even if they're not in a position to donate to us. Knowing that is how we build the legacy of Shriners, is through that constant storytelling and just understanding that it happens differently. A younger person might, want to see something, online or on their phone. And, someone who is, from a different generation might want to hold that magazine in their hands and read that at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, obviously the whole organization is incredibly authentic. Have you gotten to the point, speaking of the younger generation, are you guys accepting crypto donations yet?
So I don't know the future of that in terms of kind of, where we're headed with that. Certainly we're always looking at the ways that we can best engage. Gaming is something that's come about in the past couple of years, where there's been some monetization of gaming, and, lots of not-for-profits are entering into that space. And so we're always, again, looking at how we can connect. How can we make sure that our story is being told to people that wouldn't see it through traditional means? There's some people that watch TV, but there's a lot of people now that stream, and they maybe don't see things on TV the same way, or the way that they consume, broadcast content is very different. And so we're always looking at kind of what's next. How do we better connect? And so, cryptocurrency is not something that we're doing today, but, we're always looking to see, how do we connect with more people? How do we tell our story in a new way? So it's an interesting question, only because I think it helps us to always focus on the fact that we are looking at, what's happening, tomorrow, not just what's happening today.
Yeah, I love that's a very good point of view. I appreciate that. Gaming is obviously one I think that fits your group very, very well, especially with these kids. It's a big part. I think I have 3 professional gamers that work in my organization, and it just came out through, having lunch conversations. It's a big deal. There's a lot of esports that are going on. As far as, obviously, Mel, you're obviously an incredibly talented communications and marketing professional running a huge organization. What are some other tips you might give other leaders, executive directors, CMOs of nonprofit organizations as we transition into 2021 and forward?
I mean, I would say, my number one most valuable asset, apart from the mission, and that is our most important thing, of the stories that we have from our patients.
Yeah.
But, within the professional circle, it's my team. And it begins with your team and having the very best group of people assembled. That's the number one thing. I mean, there's nothing that's more important than having the right people at the table and acknowledging the need for diversity in that group. You don't want everyone that thinks the same. You don't want everyone who thinks every idea is great. You need the person at every meeting who can say, I think that's kind of a terrible idea, but here's why. And so, building a diverse team, I think is the most important asset. And I think if we didn't learn that through the past, 12, 15 months, then I think we're probably never going to learn it. Because I look at, we were facing the same situation that everyone else was the beginning of March of 2020. You send everybody home, you start trying to work in this virtual environment. And immediately, I think we were kind of facing this challenge of, gosh, we have so many really big things on the horizon. How are we going to do this? How are we going to make sure we stay connected and the work, is still moving forward? And I think what we learned is that when you know how to work well together in person, you can work well virtually, and you can get through those challenges. I think you would probably hear from most of my team, we still prefer to be together. We're not yet. We're not, fully, back in the office, all of us together yet. And that's something that we look forward to. But putting that team together that can really carry each other through challenges, I think that's how you get where you can't go alone, is a group of people that take you to, amazing places. And so I've referenced our new website a couple of times. It's really on, the edge of going live for us now. And that's going to be a humongous celebration for us as a team. And when everything started about a year ago, it was sort of like, well, what happens to our big web project? What happens to the digital transformation? And we were able to really move forward with a lot of that, not only because obviously the work could be done virtually, but because we had the team in place that could really roll up their sleeves, even virtually and remotely, and get the work done. And so I just think there's no more valuable asset, in the Marcom tool belt than your team. And I think it requires time in selecting them and time in growing that relationship and developing in them as professionals. That investment, I think, alone is one that pays dividends beyond anything else that we can do. And so, you can strip about everything else away, just don't take my team, because that's where the value is for us as an organization. And I believe as a marketing leader, those that we work collaboratively and cooperatively, and we get together to a distance we could never achieve on our own.
Those are some very wise words, Mel. I really appreciate it. Where can, for those listening and watching this podcast, where can others follow more of your thought leadership?
So I am on LinkedIn and try to share not only Shriner stories, but things going on with our own team as well. I referenced that we have the Leaders in Care magazine. I actually do have a column in that every issue, in which I talk a little bit about sort of what's going on in our system, as well as previewing some of the content of that issue in particular. So just a couple of ways that, I'm also very active in the Society for Healthcare Strategy and Market Development. A lot of healthcare marketers are aware of that. That's an industry group that I've spent a lot of time with and working with, and one that also is a really valuable place just for a lot of sharing of thought, leadership, as well as kind of looking at what's next. And I would encourage anyone to be a part of whatever professional organization is relevant to their industry, and just knowing that collaboration outside of your organization can also be extremely valuable.
Well, Mel, thank you for that advice. We really appreciate you coming on the show today, and would love to have you back sometime. Can't wait to see that new website and understand and consume more of this content that you guys are putting out there. That is fantastic. And it seriously just makes me so emotional when I look at it. And I think about what these kids are going through, and just seeing how much strength they have is just unbelievable, plus their families. And the mission that you guys have and the work that you're doing is incredible. And I would encourage anybody who's watching this or listening to learn more about the Shriners Hospital organization and the work that they do. It's a phenomenal organization and cause. So again, Mel, thank you for joining us. And
thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And please, everyone watching this podcast, follow and like the Law of Relevancy podcast online. We're everywhere where podcasts and video content can be found. Thank you again, Mel. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.